4 months after his re-election, the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Félix Tshisekedi, came to Berlin.
An occasion for DW to do an interview. Mr. President, welcome to our program.
Merci, mesdames.
Your country has lots of wealth, including strategic minerals, the so-called 3 Ts, tantalum, tungsten, tin. And just recently, your government's lawyers accused US tech giant Apple of using illegally mined minerals in their products. Minerals that were alleged to be extracted from Congolese mines, transported, and then laundered mainly via Rwanda. The accusation goes further, saying that all these alleged activities financed armed groups in eastern DRC. There's even an ultimatum given. Why exactly?
Quite simply, so it may stop. It's been going on for 30 years, ever since the international community asked us to open our borders to the influx of refugees fleeing the genocide in Rwanda. At that point, people involved in the genocide also slipped in. And they entered the DRC with their weapons, because the order had been given from somewhere, still within the international community, to let them in with their weapons. And after that, Rwanda was given a right of pursuit, inviting itself into the Democratic Republic of Congo to hunt down these people. But unfortunately, Rwanda didn't make the distinction, so also massacred Congolese. And since then, the massacre hasn't ended. Rwanda discovered that there were minerals in the DRC. And Rwanda made contacts in the international community that enabled it to sell these blood minerals. Minerals obtained by using violence against our populations to force them to leave the localities where these minerals are found.
Dans lesquels on trouve ces minerais. Depuis lors,
Since then, Rwanda has become the representative of these minerals for the international community, for these multinationals.
La communauté internationale, pour ces multinationales.
You just mentioned the 1990s, when Rwandan refugees came to Zaire. Now it's 30 years later.
This is why I said it's been going on 30 years.
Today in eastern Congo, we're seeing the presence of the M23 movement, which according to multiple statements by your government is supported by Rwanda. Do you plan to meet Rwanda's president, Paul Kagame, in the days to come?
There's currently an initiative being taken by Angolan President João Lourenço, who's been appointed mediator in this conflict by the African Union. And he's already put forward peace initiatives on several occasions, but they've all been sabotaged. Everything was sabotaged by Kagame and his regime. We're really at a final crossroads. There is now what we believe to be a last chance, and I want to give peace a chance as much as possible. But obviously, that's not because of weakness, and we're not always going to be patient like this, wishing for peace.
Does that mean that you're still prepared, as agreed, to meet Paul Kagame?
I've always said that I'd never meet the M23. Because, as I said, it's an empty shell, fabricated to justify the aggression against my country, the DRC.
contre mon pays, de la RDC, mais qu'en réalité, le vrai
But the
agresseur,
real aggressor, the real criminal, is Paul Kagame. And I want to meet him, not to beg him or to negotiate anything with him. It's to ask him and tell him clearly, eye to eye, that he's a criminal, that enough is enough now and that his little game is known to everyone. It's enough what he's done to my country and my people, and it's time for him to leave the territory, the soil of my country.
le territoire, le sol de mon pays.
You mentioned the multinational companies, Apple, but maybe others too. What do you expect from them?
Peut-être
Not maybe others, surely others.
Oh, mais vous le saurez.
Oh, but
les
you'll
enquêtes
find out. The investigations continue.
c'est que, ces minerais
The
sont
most serious thing is that these minerals are extracted from the Congolese subsoil at the price of blood, as I said, by using violence and terror to make the populations living in these localities flee.
et ensuite, ils sont transportés par
And then they're transported along trails via motorcycles to Rwanda.
jusqu'au Rwanda. Et là,
And there they're stamped by an international NGO. We quote all that, which obviously absolves them of the fact that they're blood minerals, passes them off as if they were minerals mined in Rwanda.
les fait passer comme si c'était des minerais extraits au Rwanda. Et Paul Kagame a
And
eu
Paul
même
Kagame even had the gall to say once that the coltan in his country is of better quality than in the DRC.
en République démocratique du Congo.
Monsieur le Président, on va revenir
Mr. President, let's get back to the situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Right now, we're talking about the minerals being mined in the east of the DRC. So let's focus on the east. According to the OCHA, since the beginning of this year, more than 358,000 people have been newly displaced. And they say that the number of displaced people has reached around 7.1 million. And this is largely due to the armed conflict in the Kivus and Ituri. What is your response today to the people living in the displaced persons camps in Mugunga, Kibati, Bahimba, who are just hoping to go home?
Si tout va bien, et je prie Dieu,
If all goes well, and I pray to God that it really continues like this, the Ituri case will be resolved in the months to come, and we'll be able to smoke the peace pipe.
de ce côté-là. Il restera donc le Nord Kivu, où
Then it'll just be North Kivu, where the issue is the plundering of resources from the DRC in complicity with certain multinationals from industrialized countries.
dans des pays industrialisés. Ça, c'est autre chose.
That's something else. And so it depends precisely on these countries which are home to these multinationals.
Ces multinationales.
It's up to them to put pressure on these companies to stop this illicit trade.
Qu'elles arrêtent ce commerce illicite. Nous sommes les représentants.
We're the representatives of the DRC, and we're open to all discussions.
Prêts à parler.
We'd rather talk about exchange, about win-win partnerships with all these multinationals, than let them make do with this macabre trafficking taking place at the cost of our citizens' lives.
Qui se fait sur la vie de nos concitoyens.
Mr. President, you have just expressed an expectation to the countries that host multinationals, including the United States, I guess? In the case of Apple. So what exactly are you waiting for? What kind of sanctions, what kind of influence should the American government have?
Devrait mettre le gouvernement américain.
Je ne sais pas dans ces cas quelles sanctions on
I
peut
don't know in
appliquer
this
à la
case what sanctions could be applied. It's up to the judiciary to think about it. But there are surely penalties and convictions for complicity in crimes.
de crimes, et voilà.
So I'm not expecting specific sanctions as such.
Comme tel, je sais que ce sont des pays
I know that these are countries where the judiciary is free, independent, and efficient,
indépendantes et efficaces, et qui
and where this kind of justice deters this type of
dissuadent
trafficking.
ce genre de trafic. Et surtout que les
Above all, the
autorités
Congolese authorities are ready to openly discuss a partnership to exploit these minerals in a win-win model.
d'un partenariat pour exploiter ces minerais dans un modèle gagnant-gagnant. Vous savez,
It's because of all these misfortunes that this wealth has caused us that I have to capitalize on it by saying we must stop being a land of extraction, quite simply. They take our minerals, they're processed elsewhere, and then they come and sell us the finished product. We want to develop our own value chain in the DRC ourselves, as far as possible as it can extend. And then, in what I call those win-win partnerships, we'll be able to fight poverty by creating jobs, creating wealth, and at the same time have partners who will also benefit from this partnership.
So Apple will negotiate directly with the DRC?
Of course, with the Democratic Republic of Congo. Why would you want to negotiate with a common thief who's doing business on the backs of dead Congolese? The telephones you have in your countries contain the blood of the Congolese.
Que vous avez ici dans vos pays contiennent le sang des Congolais.
And how do you judge the memorandum of understanding that was concluded between the European Union and Rwanda in February to promote the development of sustainable and resilient value chains for raw materials?
It's like awarding a prize for war and pillage. It's scandalous that the European Union validates such a bargain, a vile bargain. It's disgusting.
C'est dégoûtant.
You've just talked about a bonus. That's a very strong term. Don't you think that Rwanda... Don't you think that Rwanda is given more weight than the DRC on the international stage?
Non, pas du tout. Mais regardez, depuis 2022...
No, not at all. But look, since 2022, when the aggression began, and we immediately denounced it, you see that the narrative has changed. So it has only been a year and a half since this happened, whereas Rwanda has been fooling the whole world for 30 years. So you have to give us time to make up for that complicit silence in our country by the very leaders who ruled this country. Today we recognize that. Even the army was completely disjointed, so weakened and disorganized that it was unable to stand up against any kind of aggression.
De faire face à toutes ces agressions.
And on whom are you pinning your hopes for a process of reconciliation? A process that will lead to peace. You said you also wanted peace for the people who live in the east of your country in particular. On whom do you pin your hopes? If you say about Paul Kagame what you said about him here, who do you think can be that person?
Celui ou celle qui viendra après Paul Kagame.
Well, whoever comes after Paul Kagame.
Il n'est pas éternel.
He's not eternal.
J'espère qu'après lui,
I hope that after him, there will be a head of state who can understand the meaning and merits of living in peace with your neighbors.
De vivre en paix avec ses voisins.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Merci à vous. Merci à vous aussi.
Merci.